Hello, I'm making this video because I would like to talk about an experience I had about 2 years ago. Probably falls under the category of a lucid dream, although elements of it were more like an out-of-body experience, maybe. So I'll just tell you about it and hopefully you'll find it interesting, as I did. Alright, so I was staying at a friend's house. Early hours in the morning I was asleep, going in and out of sleep cycles. And as I'm falling asleep one time, my mind stays awake. Now when this happens, there's been many times in the past where I see this field of colors. And the nearest I can describe it is if you shut your eyes, look at the back of your eyelids, you should see colors. So what I see in these experiences is something similar to that, but much more opaque and vivid. Now, as I was used to seeing this multiple times before, I wasn't that surprised by it. However, this time, as I'm looking at the field of colors, I feel myself start to be pulled in a certain direction, so that the field of colors is moving across my vision this way. And this does surprise me because it hadn't happened before, and I was a little freaked out. And as I started to get a little bit scared, I could feel myself starting to wake up. At that time, a part of my mind very clearly put its foot down and said, I want to see where this is going. You know, stay curious, focus, and let's see where this goes. So I refocused on the field of colors, and as I do so, the movement stops, and I start sinking into the colors. Now, this was pretty interesting because as I felt like I was descending. As I did so, I would pass these planes of different color. And I was going through them fairly quickly, so I didn't see a lot of detail, but what I did catch glimpses of is like these surreal landscapes passing by me really fast. At one point, it almost was like I saw a city with tall skyscrapers, lights, and everything like that. So again, I didn't have time to really focus in on anyone in particular. I kept descending and descending. And as I was passing through these different planes, it was starting to get darker and darker. Like at the top, it was more light blues, yellows, greens. As I descend, it starts getting more deep reds, deep blues, purples, and it's getting very, very dark. So as I'm descending, I have this thought, I wonder what my body looks like. Just because it might look different, who knows. So I looked down and it was normal as far as I could tell, wearing normal clothes, normal shape, okay. The weird thing was that it was a little translucent and it was glowing, whatever that means, okay. So as I'm descending farther and farther, I look down and way below me is this plane of very deep red. And going across it are these bands of black flowing in and out of each other. So I assumed it was like rivers, like I'm going in some kind of wetlands or something like that. Who knows? Anyway, as I'm descending, I finally land in what looks like a plaza. So the ground was the same deep red color. I didn't see any of the black rivers anywhere. But surrounding the plaza were these orange buildings that all looked exactly the same. Just a block, no distinctive features on any of them. There were no doors, windows, decorations, anything like that I saw. So as I land, I look around, don't really see much at first. As I'm scanning the buildings, I see a figure sitting against one of them. So I get really excited at this point. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, let's go say hi. So I zoom over to him really fast, and I just blurt out a bunch of questions. I'm like, what is this place? What are you? What do you do here? What goes on here? And this poor thing doesn't respond at first, it just looks at me. Let me describe to you what he looked like. Okay. Vaguely humanoid. I really only focused on the head, so that's all I'm going to describe. There was no hair. His skin was this pale purple, looked kind of sickly. And everything about his face looked like it was drooping down. His eyes were slanted downward like this. His eye color was this very pale gray. I don't remember his nose. I didn't see a mouth at first, but, okay. The bottom of his face, one side of it was all loose and hanging in these folds. The other side had this big box sticking out of it. And it was it was a box because it was very sharply edged, but it was covered by his skin. It was big, like this big, sticking out of his face. Yeah, weird. Anyway, and the feeling I got from him was one of just very gloomy, resigned. I didn't get any kind of fear from him, though. Just this very depressed kind of feeling to him. Anyway, so as I'm looking at him, he finally responds. Not to my question, he just says this thing. And it was, okay. Are you here to devour me? This was me. No. Yeah. And I say no. And he says back, it's okay. I know you're here to devour me. And at this point, I was pretty sure that there was some kind of communication problem between us. I don't think he understood what I was saying. I understood the words he was saying. I don't know why he would say that. Anyway, so afterward I was like, what a kind of pitiful figure. I kind of felt sorry for him. At the time, I was just annoyed that he was not answering my questions, So, yeah. Okay. So he's not telling me anything. I look around some more, and I see on the other side of the plaza, a fair distance from me, this line of bug-like creatures marching in single file just straight through the plaza. Okay, let me describe what they look like. They were each the size of, let's say, a medium-sized dog. Their bodies were bug shapes, like oblong with little legs sticking down. They each had human heads, but the expression on their faces was frozen in this look of terror, like something horrible like that. I can't really do it, but it was pretty frightening to see. Also, they differed one from the other in fairly minor ways, but each of them had various things sticking out of their heads, like antlers or horns or spikes. Yeah. And their bodies and heads were covered in the same type of skin. It was very dark, like a black-brown, kind of twisted, looked very thick, almost like tree bark. And yeah, each one was covered with this type of skin. They seemed completely oblivious to their surroundings. They're just marching along single file. And as I'm looking at them, I hear a voice, which I ascribe to a guide, maybe. It always sounds kind of the same, and I've heard it several times in these experiences, so I'll just assume it's a guide. And it says, they're having nightmares. Okay. I didn't really think anything of it. I got the sense like I'm just here to observe. So I'm not supposed to necessarily do anything, just look, oh, they're having nightmares. That sucks, yeah. Anyway, and as I'm marching along, I see one where it's not in the shape of the other ones. It's just kind of this, dark mist. I can't see any details in it, but it's marching along with the other bugs, so I assume it's one of them. Okay. And as I'm looking at it, I hear the voice again, and it seems like it's a message that kind of passes through me to this bug that I can't see well. So the message says, wake up. Very simple, gentle, and the mist disappears. So I assume it's some kind of success. It woke up, maybe. Anyway, so as I'm standing there, I start thinking, because nothing really much is going on. And I start getting really curious about this guy with the box in his face. And I'm like, what is that for? Why does he have a box in his face? And also, where's his mouth? I have not seen his mouth yet. So I decide to inspect a little closer. Yeah. And again, I didn't sense any fear from him, so I didn't feel bad about getting this close to his face, looking at his thing. Yeah. So I zoom in really closely. I turn and face this side of the box, and I find his mouth. It's this little, a little hole surrounded by his lips, which were very wormy and pale, really gross looking. And inside was darkness. As I'm looking at it closer and closer, I hear this. Okay, he spit something out. What did he spit out? I look down on the ground. There are these two eyeballs with red, bloody stuff hanging off the back of them. They looked fresh. Okay. I don't say anything to him. He doesn't say anything to me. He's still just looking at me. Yeah, so I decided I'm not going to mess with you anymore. Have fun. Good. All right. At this time, I hear a commotion coming from the line of bugs. And apparently one of them has gone crazy. It is rampaging through the line. Bugs are flying everywhere. There's all this carnage. And the bug that was going crazy had these spikes coming out of the front of its face like that. Okay. One of the bugs in front of it didn't get out of its way. So it gets impaled in the back of the head with these face spikes. And the front of its face explodes in black gore. Okay. I'm looking at this, and I freak out. Like, that could happen to me. I need to get out of here now. Okay. Mini freak out. I did not wake up at this time. I stayed in the experience, pretty much focused, but I wanted to leave. So I take one last look at the guy leaning against the side of the orange wall. He's still just looking at me. And I start floating up the side of the orange building. Okay. As I'm floating up, I kind of calm down. I'm getting a little more relaxed. And I pass this black string with multicolored lights on it. And I hear the voice again, and it says, 1950s American Christmas decorations. Oh, nice. Good. Yeah. So I reach the top of the building, and at this time I can tell it's already quite a bit lighter than it was down there. I have in my mind that there's like a sunrise or sunset somewhere. I look around the horizon, I don't see it. All I see are the roofs of these orange buildings going off as far as I can see. Again, very uniform, very plain, like no decorations or anything like that. And as I'm looking around, I see, okay, there's someone on the roof with me. I was a little apprehensive because I didn't want to get freaked out again, but at the same time, I was fairly calm, so I just kind of looked at him. And it was a man. He looked very normal, Caucasian, probably light brown hair, normal face, good. He was wearing these robes, gold robes with, let's see, bands of color going across his torso in a rainbow pattern. Honestly, it was kind of tacky. It wasn't pretty. It was just kind of tacky. He starts talking to me. Keep in mind, I don't say anything to this guy. I just look at him. He says, "You must be new here. You probably broke a bunch of rules already." I give the equivalent of a shrug, just because I have no idea what he's talking about. He sighs and then goes on to say, "Well, you'll have to pick a group or faction or alignment." I don't know what exact word he used, but that's the meaning I understood. And then he goes off on what I assume to be a list of the different groups I can pick. But I stopped listening at this point because I was kind of done with the experience, and I was still obsessed with this idea of the box. This guy with a box in his face. What? Why? You know? So I stopped listening, and I don't hear anything he says until the end when I refocus on him. And the last thing he says was, "But don't pick them. They're crazy." Okay. So I understood, like, he thought I was going to be sticking around there, and I was lucid. I knew that this was a dream or something like it. So I knew I wasn't going to be spending any time there. So I looked at him one last time, and then I woke up. So I hope you found this interesting. I know I did. I did a lot of thinking about it, lots of different interpretations, and I don't have any conclusions on what it means or anything, but it's fun to think about. So I have had more of these experiences that I will share in the future. So if you're interested, keep that in mind. All right, bye.